kind of real time what collectively we're all thinking, and then we can kind of show you in the product on how we would attack those different challenges or different ideas. Obviously, not necessarily building it completely from scratch, but I'll definitely try my best to show you exactly how the platform can do a lot of what you're trying to achieve. So this is the first one I've done, so you're going to have to bear with me. Obviously, if everybody could, because we have so many people, put their mics on mute. And what I was thinking is, while we're waiting for the final few people to join us, is if we could use I'll definitely open it up for conversation and discussion. I'm going to kind of free flow it for a couple hours. You can come and go as you wish. If you want to invite other people, they can drop in later. But if you have ideas, or if you want to see something specific that I could either talk to, and obviously I'm going to navigate the product as I talk to show you how it would be done. If you want to throw your ideas inside of the chat, that would be ideal. So that way I can kind of, walk through them sequentially. And then also it might be scenarios where other people are probably going to ask the same questions or want to see the same thing. So you can kind of ride along with the flow. And then what I was thinking was, using the chat is obviously going to be the easiest, just because we're going to have like 40, 50, 60 people on this thing. So, but at the end, I'm happy to open it up. And if you guys want to be more vocal and do a little Q&A, but again, the chat is honestly the least annoying way of doing it, I think. Otherwise, we talk over each other. And certainly, if we do the Q&A, I'll also do the hand raising. All right, so it's probably obvious at this point that I'm kind of winging it, but good news is that we're going to focus mostly on show and tell and start with quick. I'm just going to go into some of the things that I think are very important to know, and then please add to the chat room if you can anything that you want to see or talk about. Trying to keep this more developer oriented, but I know developer is kind of a loose word now, because agents, anybody can develop agents and build out agents, at least a subset of those agents. So I think obviously, please, if anything, I'm going to try to keep it as least technical, but also I want to make sure that it is something of value. So let me admit a few more people here, and let's get started. So, so the first thing I wanted to kind of really highlight when we're talking about building out an agent is what I would call just kind of the general flow. We have an agent factory here at raia where we train our people and on kind of a process. And this is a process that we try to share with all CSI companies, because we think it's, this is something that's important to have when it comes to if you want to start kind of building out more and more agents, right? And agents are essentially, standalone, kind of what I would call, task oriented, or, automated, where there's autonomous work to be done, or maybe it's communicating, maybe it's support, maybe it's sales. But I think the conclusion that we're all kind of coming to is that all of our businesses will have many, many agents, and we want to be able to empower our teams, our employees, to build those agents, especially the domain experts. And even though sometimes you do have a technical hurdle to overcome, like integrating it with a system or an application, for the most part, building the baseline of an agent and training it is very natural to us, because it's all done through natural language. So I'm going to show you a lot of stuff today that most people can do. And then I'll talk a little bit about, okay, might be where a non-technical person might have to kind of go knock on somebody's door to help them connect to their third-party app or do some workflow or whatever it might be. But you can get quite a bit done simply just by accessing the platform and start building out agents. And I would encourage everybody to think about maybe small, interesting use cases. They may not be high-impact agents, like a support agent that's handling all your tickets, but something even just personally or individually that could be of value. Could just be simple, document search or whatever it might be. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then also if everybody could just put their stuff on mute, just because we're going to go with chat as the because we have like 50, 60 people here. It'll be easier for everybody so that there's no background noise. I'm just going to manually do. And all right, so let's get started. I'm still emitting people. All right, so when we talk about an agent, and again, reminder for everybody who's new, if you want to see something specific, please put it in the chat window. I'll get to that after I kind of do what I would call the basic overview of how to build an agent. I'm going to build one right now, and we're going to walk through kind of the process. And then if there's anything above and beyond that you want to see, or you have a challenge in your mind you want to see, put it in the chat window. That'd be awesome. All right, so when you think about when you log onto raia, right? So there's really two primary areas that you might see. So the first one is where we actually build the agents. And so we kind of, this is the icon over here. We call it Launchpad. And then when you actually want to interface with the agents, we have Copilot right here. So it's just a toggle over where, well, that's not good. They just logged me out. Sorry, I forgot to log back in. That's weird. Okay, let me just try to log back in. So when we talk about building out agents, when we talk about ultimately creating an agent, the first place you start is training. And so when you think about training an AI agent, what you're really thinking about is, okay, what do I want this AI agent to do? And what kind of information do I need to give to it in order for it to be able to answer the questions that it might get asked, or be able to do the work that I want it to do. So one of the things that we start off with is essentially what we call basically building out the data room, or building out the connectivity to existing resources that have this data. So it could be something like, in this example, it could be, let's say I'm going to create a support agent, right? So we have this product here, which we call raia Command, which makes it really easy for you to take your documents and connect to your data systems so that you can start to curate and collect that data easily through by either dragging and dropping or connecting to your SharePoint and so forth. So the first thing I'm going to show you is when you first start, you say, all right, I want to build out a support agent, right? So to make it even easier, you can customize the folder structure here, but essentially think of this as just basically starting to load up the brains or the data you want to train this AI agent on. So I'm just going to drag some stuff in here, some documents that I have that I want to train this AI on. So it could be, a PDF. It could be some other documents. I'm just going to grab a bunch of just a couple examples. Sorry. And it could be a PowerPoint. It could be Word docs. It really doesn't matter. But the idea behind this is, you want to start with, I want to grab a bunch of different documents inside of this and upload them. So the first thing inside of Command that we do as you start to collect this information is we have AI go through and classify all of the documents for you. So it kind of comes up with a more friendly name. It kind of creates a taxonomy, creates some tags, and so forth. And when we upload here, so essentially goes right into here. So this agent is what I'm basically starting to build out, right? It's a custom agent. I've uploaded. Sorry, let me let some more people in. I've uploaded the data. I've uploaded a few documents so that they're ready to eventually use these documents as a way to train the AI. So the thing that we figured out early on is a lot of the documents you have are really horrible format. That AI really needs it to be clean, and it needs to be kind of prepared So we convert everything into what's called markdown language. And all that is basically just a text-oriented format. And we do that automatically for you. So, we have in our system here, the ability for it'll automatically, let me go. It'll automatically, let me go back here. Sorry. It'll automatically convert those documents for you into what's called markdown language. And so let me just kind of quickly show you what example that would be. So like, whether it's a PDF, a doc, or whatever it might be, it's going to ultimately look something like this, right? And so when you it'll look something like this, where it's going to programmatically, it'll be something like this, which is the AI can read better. So you'll see basically it's we create like this what's called a YAML header, which is like a metadata layer, and then we also kind of highlight, keeps the structure, tells AI these are headings. And so this is where it starts, and this is what ultimately gets chunked, parsed out, and put into the AI's knowledge store, right, into the vector store. And this is a very critical component part of it. So part of the challenge of training an AI is getting the data it needs translated into Markdown, and then getting it into the AI agent. So when you're building out the first step, when you're thinking about building out an AI, whether it's for legal, whether it's for support, sales, doesn't really matter, you want to get all that information in here. In this case, we have, everything from user manuals to product overviews, as an example, some training documents. And what's cool about Command is you can kind of create your own folder structure. It's very easy to set up. So it doesn't matter what kind of agent you're doing. You can create different folder structures. We have folder structures, for example, for deal rooms, for like acquisitions. We have folder structures for sales agents, support agents, for legal agents. But you can create your own as well, which is very, which is very helpful. And then when you think about once it's been actually converted into Markdown and ready to go, then it can be pushed to your agent. So within the command, you actually connect your agents right directly into command. So these are imported right from raia 2. So these are my agents here that I'm working with. And so if I want to push my training data automatically or manually right into this agent, I can do so right through command. So when you think about this part of the process, this is the part of the process where you have somebody who's basically managing or creating the agent, and the first job is, where is all the information this agent needs to be trained on, right? Is it in SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever it might be, right? And that's like the first step of kind of getting prepared. But the hard part is a lot of people don't really know how to start, because a lot of their data is discombobulated. It's in different places. It's not in the right formats. It could be Word docs and so forth. So what command does here is it gets everything in the right format, prepared, and then most importantly, ready to be uploaded right into the agent itself. And I'm doing a 2FA here, so I have to log into this other thing to show you that. Just give me a second. All right. So when we talk about, for example, when I push this into raia command, so if I come over here and I say, all right, I've uploaded the files that I want into here, and let's just say I want to push this full file, up. Now this can be automated, but I'm just showing you as an example. If I want to push this file up for training, it's as simple as basically saying, all right, I want to send that to that guy, and it goes off and running. Now you can set this to be automated, where it can, once you drag a document in there, it gets converted, it gets queued up, and it goes right to your agent. But obviously that's more of like a production environment for this, just from a demonstration. So you can see here it's being converted, it's being uploaded into the vector store, and so forth. And so when we toggle back over here, back into kind of the launch pad that I was showing earlier, this is where the agents actually live. So when we look at an actual agent, like let's say, for example, our sales agent, this is where you actually build the agent. But before we start building the agent, it's important to first know like what the agent is supposed to do, where it's going to get its training, and what it needs to be able to integrate with in order to do its job. So now that you've kind of seen how we kind of curate and collect the documents first, let's go over here and play around with creating an agent. So we're going to go ahead and just create a basic agent here. We'll create an analyst agent. And what I'm going to have it do is I'm going to have it help me rewrite my knowledge base. So I've imported all my knowledge base, let's say, into Command from a variety of sources. It's somewhat of a mess, and I want AI to kind of refactor or reorganize it. So I'm just going to call this the KB expert, and basically give it a name, internal name, give it a little short description, and we're going to fill in the instructions later. But you can kind of get it started by saying this agent will be trained on my knowledge base and help me rebuild my KB articles, right? And you can optimize this with AI to kind of get you started. But we're going to talk specifically about system instructions. System instructions are basically it's like a big prompt. You're basically telling the AI agent what its job is, right? And we're going to start with a very simple one. I'm going to talk to you more about how you actually make that work, in the sense of how you continually manipulate that system instructions to make it work, right? That's one of the big areas of understanding prompt engineering. And we're gonna these are what we call policy packs. We're going to skip this part, but like if you have a pack that you want to include that you've already pre-built for your training, you can, like, policy, or maybe it's a condition AI agents to follow. You're gonna pick that out. Then the next step is skills. So when we talk about skills, this is where you give AI a lot of power to do a lot of things. I'm going to just go ahead and just keep it on live chat and scoring right now. We're going to talk about all these skills in a minute, but we'll get to that when we actually edit the agent. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the agent up and running and started. So I've got my analyst agent up and running. So I'm just going to, I can come up here, give it a nice little logo. I can even say here, I can give it a, make it look pretty, just kind of give it like a background image, just so I can visually see what it's going to do for me. And when we think about the next step, we know that we've already uploaded a bunch of documents into Command that we can push up to this agent. But also, you can also upload documents direct here if it's something that you don't need a lot of processing for. That's certainly possible as well. So now I've got the agent up and running. If I wanted to kind of see what it's like, it's obviously empty right now, but this is like a little bit of a live chat preview where I could talk to it. But then we can start actually adding skills. So in this case, it's a knowledge base agent. So one of the things I know I want to do is I want to connect it to Command so I can upload documents into it, right? You can also upload documents direct right through here, but I want to use Command because I want to sync it up with one of my third-party apps, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So in order to do that, I need to open it up and give it an API key. And so I'm just going to set up an API key. It's just going to come in here. And all an API key is basically, a way for products, other software products to talk to other software products. So in order, so I'm going to create this API key here. And now I can connect to this using our API. I can actually toggle right over to Command, and I can go right into my organizations here, add a new agent, put the API key in here. And the reason why we kind of keep these things separate is because there's a lot of people that are going to be working within this system here that there aren't necessarily going to be the ones building the agents. So Command is for a specific audience of, like, your job is to collect and curate and get all the data the agents need to train on, and to connect the two programmatically. I've done that. So here's our KB expert. So now it's ready to go, where I can push data and documents to this guy. So I can either go in here if I want to. You have the option. I can go into training, which I'm going to start training the AI. Now you see the prompt that I gave it is a very basic prompt. We're going to stick with that one. It's basically saying, here's your role. This is your job. So at least it has an idea of what it's supposed to do. But this is probably the most powerful component of building out an AI agent is the system instructions, because that's giving them the AI all the rules and what it needs to do and how it needs to behave, and that can get very verbose for the right reason, because you might have a sophisticated thing that you needed to do. And then so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to upload a document direct into the training. So I can do that here. I can upload a document direct. The reason why we would do this is if it's something that you would just want to kind of quickly get up and running. It's only a handful of documents. You don't necessarily need command because you're not trying to scale it. You simply do it right through here. But if I wanted to, if I had hundreds and thousands of documents, or if I had third-party apps that I needed to upload or update into the agent, it's going to be a lot better to do it through command, because ultimately I might come in here and say, all right, here's all of my data that I have for my knowledge base here. And so I want to be able to send, multiple files, or it could be hundreds of files as an example. I want to be able to send all of these automatically or manually right to that agent for training, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that now too. So those are two ways that you can do it, right? Easily done. And this is really more for scale for enterprise. The other one is more for, more for just one-off if you just have a couple documents, right? All right, so now I've given the AI some instructions. I've given it some training. So now basically think of this as its brain. It knows what to do. It's been trained. It's been told what it needs to do, and it's been given some data that in its vector store, which is kind of its brain. Now it's knowledge and understands it, right? Now, probably the next question you're thinking is, well, that's great, Rich, but not all my data is in documents. It's also in third-party apps. So back to command. This is another reason why command exists. Is you can come in here and create. You can connect to existing systems. So we've connected to SharePoint here, Zoho Desk, Team Support, and so forth. And so each one of these connections allows you to connect into those applications, right? And allows you to sync up with those applications and pull them in. So your knowledge base articles might be in a variety of different places. You can bring all of that in programmatically right into your raia command, and then that gets pushed and that gets put into your folder structure right under projects, and that gets pushed right into the agent. So if you think about command, it's basically exactly how you describe it. It's a command and control system where it's gathering all this data that could live in all these different places: GitHub, Bitbucket, HubSpot, Salesforce, doesn't really matter where it is, pulls it in, gets it ready for AI, and then pushes it into your agent, either manually, allows your team to do it manually, or automatically, right? So think of it like a pipeline as you kind of think about how AI gets trained. And you can see, as we're, right now, you can see that the two documents that I just pushed through command are now in here, as well as the one that I uploaded, right? Now, the next step is, okay, so I've got the instructions. I've got basically what I want the AI to do, and I've got the documents that it's trained on. Now, many of our agents that we build have hundreds of documents, so, or thousands sometimes. And so that's the benefit of having a vector store, because the way that AI works is it's very limited to what it can have in the context window, but obviously if it needs access to a lot more documents, it needs to be able to have access to the database. The next step is I'm going to choose what model. Now, in this case, because it's going to be writing my knowledge base articles, I'm probably going to want to have something that has low to mid-sized reasoning, right? So I'm going to go ahead and upgrade the model to medium reasoning. I might want it to, do a deeper search when it looks in the vector store, but for the most part, that's all. Let's try this for starting. If you want something that's a little bit more aggressive, you can actually go with high reasoning, but for the most part, low to medium for most use cases is good. In some cases, you don't need reasoning at all if it's like a very, point blank tactical agent and so forth. Now, going back to skills, remember I added the API skill so I could connect it to raia command. But another cool thing is I might want to add the MCP skill, because I've got a bunch of people on my team that use Claude, or they use ChatGPT, and I want to make KB Expert accessible to them as well. So you can also set up your MCP server. Every agent can has an MCP server, so that I can connect it directly within my Claude system or within my ChatGPT. So We obviously have our own interface that we can talk to this agent with, called Copilot, but you can certainly talk to this agent through a variety of other things. This is a very popular tool for a lot of our developers that want to connect to an agent that they build on raia through like their coding IDE, right? So like through VS Code or through GitHub Copilot, they can connect to the MCP because they might want to access knowledge that lives in this agent that's not in their code base, as a great example of that. Another thing I want to kind of add to this, although it's probably not for this kind of agent where it's writing an article, is not a big deal, but I could also add the ability for it to email. So I'm going to say, you know what, maybe sometimes I want to email this agent. I don't want to necessarily have to go in and type it. I want to be able to email it a prompt and say, hey, you know, I'm going to call this agent KB, and you know, what can I write for you? And I'm going to want to be able to, just like I would prompt it through Copilot or through access it through the API or access it through Claude. It doesn't really matter. Any way you want to access this agent, that's one of the more valuable parts of raia, is it comes with a built-in communications layer that integrates with SMS, email, API, live chat, voice, out of the box. So I didn't have to do anything. This KB expert now can receive email. So I'm just going to give it a new email called kb@raia.run. And I can now email back and forth with this agent and have it do tasks and have it do whatever I want it to do, right? So again, trying to show you kind of the scale of the skills. So this is one of the big, you know, areas where when we were building out agents 2-3 years ago, and I use the term loosely because they weren't really called agents back then, they were called assistants. But when we were building out basically AI entities that would do work, one of the biggest challenges was building all of these skills over and over and over as we built out our agentic workforce. Because every time you build an agent, you have to go back and look at all these different things that you want to have available to them. And you don't want your developers focusing on that. You want your developers focusing on what the agent can do. So what we do is we continue to add to our skill library, you know, every day and all the time. The other, you know, to make sure that it's easy to deploy not just one agent, but hundreds of agents, because that's where we're all going, right? Another thing I thought would be really interesting is I want to be able to be notified if somebody builds out an article, because maybe I want to double check it, or I want to get alert. So I want to, at the end of somebody building out an article, I want to be notified by email. And so I've got that one set up there. And that's a very valuable one, especially for sales or for support use cases. Also want to be able to do web search, because maybe there is some information I wanted to gather from the internet. You know, when it writes out the knowledge base article, maybe I'm asking it to write a knowledge base article about how to integrate with, you know, Microsoft SharePoint. So it'll go out and query Microsoft SharePoint data and make sure it has the latest API information, because that information is not in our core knowledge base. So you have to think about this agent. What it's doing is it's basically going through a series of tasks. It basically starts with, I'm going to first get my instructions. Then I'm going to go in and understand what's in the vector store. And then if I have web search, I'm going to go out and search the web if the person needs me to do that. And then if I need to call a third-party application, I can do that through function calls, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I might also go into the context of the conversations that I've already had. And so it collects all that data before it gives you the answer. So what we're demonstrating here is how easy it is to showcase that and how to set that up. So I think I've got enough right now for this KB expert to start playing around with it, right? If I want to set usage limits, this is a big part of token, you know, making sure token management is part of your strategy. As you can imagine, you know, fast forward 2-3 years from now, you're going to have hundreds of agents, but are you managing your tokens? Are you actually saying, okay, limit our tokens for different apps, different users, different agents? Right now, I think everybody's just kind of like, whatever, you know, spend as many tokens as you want, and then when the bill gets too high, somebody goes around and figures out who went over their budget, right? And this is a big challenge for a lot of our BUs. So, you know, token management is a big part of raia. So if you're using raia, we can limit tokens based on different use cases, different users, different agents, and so forth. Security is another big one. So we do everything at the agentic layer. So if I want to allow somebody to access my agent in my organization, and help me build it, or if I just want them to access it just to talk to it, this is where I would invite them to my agent. So everything is very much at the agentic side of the, everything we do is very much at the agentic layer. So security, controls, obviously the training, everything. So that way you have much more granular control over a specific agent. Some agents you only want to access yourself, and those are private agents that you only have access to. And some agents you want to have obviously accessible by all of your customers, like a support live chat. So all that would be configured here. And so I think we're ready to kind of, we're going to go ahead and launch it. It's out of the box. You know, I have the ability to embed it as live chat. You saw that, you know, over here, it kind of looks like this. Obviously in a live website, I kind of show you real quick. I'll toggle over to our website. In a live website, it looks, you know, like you would expect, right? Like any other live chat where I can access and grab information and so forth. So that's out of the box. You can easily embed this on any website if that's where I wanted to do. But in this use case, it doesn't really make sense as a live chat because this is something that I want to access through either a tool like Claude or ChatGPT, or out of the box, Raia also has its own interface that we can use, and we call this Copilot. And so I'm going to go ahead and load up my KB Expert. And so you can see the similarity here, right? You can see like it basically has, it's a little bit more enterprise hardened because we use this quite a bit for human feedback support. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So it has a little bit more of a tilt toward enterprise use, like an enterprise user. But I'm going to start off by just basically, you know, talking to the agent. And you'll see that, okay, so I'm going to say like, I need to write or update our KB articles. What are you currently? So what I'm going to basically do is have a conversation, and you know, kind of go back and forth with the agent, and just start to understand what it's been trained on and understand what it can do. And then once we understand kind of, okay, it's you know, play around with it, train on it, and understand what where the gaps are, what else it needs to be uploaded, what needs to be added to the training, then I would toggle back to command and upload more documentation, and basically make it where maybe it's missing some articles, maybe I need to connect to my old knowledge base and so forth. And that way we can make sure it's fully trained, and we can kind of go back and forth. And that's really kind of where we go, where a lot of the work is done, is training the agent, and then toggling back and forth until you kind of get it to the point where it's ready for final testing. So a lot of it is not only uploading and continue to upload more and more documents. Sometimes it's finding the connections it needs to basically you know, access the data that might live in like Salesforce, Zendesk, and so forth. And then finally getting all that data trained into the vector store. And then it's probably some fine tuning of your instructions as well. And so you're kind of, maybe it's not answering the questions correctly. You're wanting to define, you know, you want to look at the prompt and make sure that it's responding the correct way. Maybe you don't like the tone of it. You know, maybe it's more of an issue around you know, the way it's writing the articles and so forth. So like we're going to just kind of example is we're just going to have it right. Let's just say, can you, what are you? So the first, just because I don't remember what I uploaded, I'm just going to first kind of identify what's in there. So I'm going to ask, so I can ask it a question around like the training and so forth. But you kind of understand the point here is, yeah. So I'm going to say, let me go back and see what, just remind myself what I uploaded here. Go back to the training. Yeah. Okay, so I've got the documentation, internal. Okay, so I'm just gonna have it just do a generic article. Okay, that's right. And the 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 power of kind of Copilot here is that all of the different interfaces, whether it be email, whether it be SMS, voice, API, or Copilot here, they're all accessing the same agent, and Copilot. This is our primary interface to see everything that the agent is doing. So in this case, I'm just talking to Copilot like I'm talking one tool, right? But let's toggle over as an example when we talk about, like I showed you earlier, the live chat on our website. Let me show you kind of how that's another use case for Copilot. So this is more of a knowledge base. I'm using it as a person. I'm just kind of talking to it. It's helping me write stuff. But let's just toggle over real quick and show you another kind of use case where I'm going to go over to the sales agent now, and I'm going to see. And so now I have a view of all the conversations. You'll see, because I'm an admin now. I've got my admin mode turned on. Now I have a view of all the conversations that this AI is having. And so if I were to come over here and toggle here, and let's just say I'm pretending to be somebody who's a sales lead. So I'm on the raia website, and now I'm communicating through live chat. So right now what's happening is, on the Copilot side, I can easily toggle over, and I can start to see the integration with the live chat. So think of me right now as the salesperson or the support person from an internal. I'm an employee looking at what's going on with my live chat. You'll notice up here it says via live chat. So what we're able to see here is all activity that's coming through whatever channel it might be. So whether it's an SMS message, an email. So think of this as a unified messaging platform that you're able to manage all of your AI agents. Now, this is where raia really starts to add value. Is I can also now use this connectivity and use this back and forth that I'm witnessing in whatever use case, and I can start to create feedback. So I can give the AI a good rating on that answer. I could give it a bad rating. I can obviously correct it, provide comments to help the AI improve its answers. And so this is the human feedback element of our product. So anytime that you're deploying an agent, as we walk through it, I'm kind of highlighting where I think the biggest lift and the biggest challenges that we faced and why we built this product. The first one was training the AI agent, getting all of your documents from a variety of different sources into one place so that it can be uploaded into your agent. So command solves that problem. Then once you actually have the agent up and running, and you need to be able to communicate with that agent through whatever channel, if you're deploying it as a live chat for support, whether you're deploying it as an email for outbound sales, or whether you're deploying it as an internal agent to process legal documents or whatever it might be, you need all those interfaces have to come out of the box ready to go. So that makes it easy, so that once you deploy an agent, you can easily navigate in between them. So when I look at my agentic workforce here, if I'm working on building out my knowledge base, I can toggle over here and work with this agent, right? And then if I need to work with my event promotion, or if I want to work on my, get access to my CRM data, all this is my agentic workforce. And so it makes life easier for me to be able to access this. And of course, any one of these agents could also access each other as well. But if I'm doing oversight, let's say if I'm the support manager or I'm the sales manager, and I want to be able to see all the activity my AI is having through people talking to the AI, then I can easily go through here and look at those conversations, right? And so again, having these tools already built out for you saves you a tremendous amount of time as you start to build your agents. And it doesn't really matter where you deploy your agents. Certainly you could deploy agents right on raia. It's fully capable of doing that. We already, we showed you the platform on where the agents are built out, right? It's easy to do. It's a very easy platform where I can build out my skills, my training, and all of the documents and so forth. And I have the basics of that agent ready to go. But this is an agent as itself can be deployed in a variety of ways. It can be accessed in a variety of ways. It can be accessed through other tools. So really what we're trying to do is accelerate you to the point where you can actually start focusing on more on the agent itself, the training, the system instructions, the connectivity, the efficacy, and so forth, and not worry about building out the framework or platform that is required in order to meet that. All right, so right now I'm gonna. So I think I wanted to just get this kind of beginnings of the how to build this out, and from a kind of a step by step, just to kind of get what I would call, for a lot of you, maybe this is new, where I can build out an agent from step 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I actually have an agent that I can use. I can start asking it to write articles. I can then go back and forth and train it better. But now I think I have probably some questions in the queue, so I'm going to start using the questions as my primary navigator. So if you want to specific, please post your questions, and I'll use that as the. All right, so yes, some of these are more business questions. So I'll rush through those. But like one of the first questions is, what's your most high impact request that you've received from most of the BUs? The primary requests that we've seen have been support agents and and sales agents. Support, sales, and operations, but support is usually where we start. And where a lot of the knowledge base has to be transferred over, where there's a lot of gain because a lot of support teams are underwater. They don't have a lot of capacity, and it's easy to train an AI agent, on your core database is the first great place to start. And whether it be deployed as live chat, we integrate with Zendesk, we integrate with all the different support applications. So we have a lot of BUs that have basically allowed our AI agent to take over tier 1, tier 2 support. And that enables them to free up a lot of time for their support team to handle the harder cases. And we have also expanded that to code support. So you can train the AI on the code as well. So one of the cool things about Command is you can integrate it with your GitHub, and it can access a repo, or if you have, Bitbucket or whatever, DevOps, whatever it might be. And so syncing up, being able to come in here and, you select your project within Command on where you want to sync it up with, and you just kind of choose your folder, and then you can kind of go into your repos. So in this case, let's say I wanted to, bring in this repo for this AI to be trained on. And I want to, I'm not going to sync it up with agents. You can auto push it to your agent. So if there's updates in your code base, it'll automatically get it and put into your agent. But for now, I'm just going to create another import. So this is where a lot of companies and a lot of people that are deploying AI get stuck, right? It's AI is a really attractive thing for a lot of, it's very easy to get caught up in like, oh, I just built out this agent inside of Claude, and I gave it a couple documents, and I gave it some training, and it's really cool. And we kind of call that a personal agent, and that's a great way to get started. But when we talk about enterprise grade agents, when you actually start to deploy it and you want it to actually be autonomous and operate more for the enterprise, less for the personal gain, this is where it gets really complicated. And you don't really want to have your developers wasting time on building all of these custom frameworks, harnesses, and hooks. And this is exactly where, but you also don't want to handcuff your developers from still building. And so raia allows you to do both, right? It gives you a very robust API layer. You can still do things direct if you want to, but for the most part, it allows you to easily integrate with. So yeah, sales, support, operations, specifically in M&A too, we're doing a lot more deal room analysis, SIM analysis. So if there's anybody here in the M&A world, we're doing quite a bit in that world as well with great success. But if you're a BU, the first use case I would deploy would be support, and I've kind of shown you kind of how that would go, right? You get your training, you get your integration, and then your agent, and then you start testing. You do human feedback, and then you can deploy it as live chat, as email, or embedded into your existing support system, right? Well, if you want your AI to be inside of your Zendesk, you can certainly have that, or team support, or where it might be. The next question is it possible to use advanced modules like Anthropic for building agents? Yeah, so currently our core agents are using OpenAI's family of models. We do plan on supporting Google Anthropic later this year. We can integrate with Anthropic on the workflow side of things, because we don't do a lot of coding, we're not a tool. So like you're still using your Claude code or your IDE or your CLI for coding. We don't go into that world. We're really more of the agentic autonomous layer. And we found that Claude is good at that, is good at coding, but is as far as comparable to like as far as professional, communication stuff, OpenAI in our opinion still has a broader, a more robust family of models and continues to be the leader there. So that's obviously why we chose them. Also, Claude is a tad expensive, but certainly the goal with raia is to support all models natively. Currently, our core agent that you deploy off is primarily OpenAI models, but that doesn't mean that you can't tether it to something that accesses Claude. So there's still the flexibility there, and so forth. The other, okay, I would like to, here's a great one. I would like to see more stats on raia so I can track adoption. That's a great point. So let me show you command as another area where command comes into play. So we're really excited about command. We released it last month. It's exciting because what we've done is we've been able to basically take everything that we used to do manually, like all the hard labor, and we tried to put it into a product so that we can enable you and your teams, even if they're not technical people, to really start building out very powerful agents. And so to your question around reporting, if you go down here to reports in command, oh, by the way, when you buy raia, or if you're a raia customer, which all of you are, because that's who I invited to this call, or most of you should be, you get access to all this. This is all part of your package. So, when you bought raia, you bought all apps. You get command, control, contract. You get the raia 2 launchpad. Everything is all there. So don't worry about it. You just have to get access. So if you don't have access to command, just email our support at raiai.com and we can make sure that you can sign up. It's raiacommand.com is where you get access to it. So what you do in under the report section is where you can get a lot of great reports where we kind of expose to you where like the token usage as you mentioned earlier, and a variety of other things. But let me just kind of load it up here. Sorry, I've got another authentication thing here. So let me kind of walk you through just kind of a demonstration of one. So we are expanding these reports as we speak, but let's just take, for example, as far as usage and things like that, it's all in these reports. So you can go down to the agent level. You can look at your total token usage, how many agents you have. You can look at your channel usage, emails, live chat, Copilot, voice. So all of token usage over time, which is very valuable, but at the agentic layer, at the user layer, message count and usage. So yeah, so part of command right now is very much the idea that we are exposing this same, these same kind of reports, right? So when you look at, if I wanted to drill into, oh, that's the wrong one. Let me drill into a different one that takes a little bit of time to load here. But when I drill into the reports on my agents, I want to see, okay, how many tokens are being used, how many users are, how many messages are happening, et cetera. So all this reporting is available inside of command. And one of the other cool things, this is kind of goes back to that whole point about having a command and control of your entire agentic workforce. This is an area where we are focused. So we run into a lot of times where we start talking to a BU and they're like, oh, well, what's the difference between you and Copilot, or you and Claude, and you and whatever, pick your tool. And I think the separation and where there's clarity is when you start building out your agentic workforce, you start to see all the things that you need to have to really manage that agentic workforce at scale. And the tools and us are completely complementary. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Like we integrate perfectly with Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot and SharePoint, because those tools are meant to be very much workspace tools. And then when you want to evolve into something more robust and enterprise grade, where you have thousands of documents, you have multiple systems you have to integrate with, you want to have command and oversight. These are the products that we're building. So when you wake up 2-3 years from now and you have 100 or 200 AI agents working for you, and you need to basically manage 100 different people, the equivalent of different people, because you might be tweaking the instruction prompt, you might be uploading new documents to get their training correct, you might be integrating to new systems in a different way, you might be deploying other agents, you might have 50 different people accessing those agents because they're roles and managers of different units in your business, right? Support, sales, operations. What is going to be your primary interface to manage all that and be able to and still be able to sleep at night? And so our job at raia and the mandate we have with CSI is we want to make sure that all of our BUs have ability to not just build out 1 or 2 AI agents or be able to use tools, but to actually build at scale many agents, but have the ability to monitor that, understand token usage, understand escalations, if there's errors, if there's security issues, managing access control, all those other things that makes the bigger thing work, right? And I think this is the power of this. So yeah, so to answer your question, command is kind of the area where you could get reporting. Now you do have some reporting, limited reporting inside of Launchpad, but because Launchpad is primarily for builders, so if you go into your agent here, because Launchpad is mostly for builders, we wanted to expose the reporting for other people that might have access to command. But you can see obviously also inside of your Launchpad, you can get a very high level of your usage here. And now with our usage controls, you can set limits on how many tokens per agent is used, which is a great added feature, because you might deploy out raia and give everybody in your team access to raia to start building agents, but you can limit their tokens on org level or even on an agentic level. And that allows your team to invest, to kind of experiment and to build stuff, but also minimizes your token burn. And what's cool about raia and the way that we price our product is that we do limit, we give you chunks of tokens and we monitor that for you. So even when you get close, we also have a hard cap and alert that goes off when you hit your overall license, and we're the first ones to ring the bell and say, hey, your token usage is about to approach. So there's no surprises. So we are monitoring, and then also that way every month what your token budget is. It will never go over that when you're using raia, and then even within your organization, it gives you the granular control to do that. Here's the next question here is it possible to embed these agents in VS Code? Yes. In the beginning, how you would do that, and you can go to our docs website. It kind of walks you through it, but you can kind of come down here to tools, and it'll be here. Yeah. So you can walk through the setup. It's relatively easy. It's basically you're just adding an MCP server. And so let me show you how to set that up on this side. So like this agent that I just built here, let's say I wanted to integrate this with my VS Code because I wanted to give access to it for whatever reason. I would just go into into the Launchpad here, and I would go into skills, and I've already added the skill MCP. And then I would grab the secret key here. That's the connectivity to the MCP, and then that's all you need. And then you go into your VS Code and add it right there. And again, anything that supports an MCP, you can connect our agents to. So think about, let's take a step back what that means. So think about, and this is actually a good point, just from a visual perspective, because I think sometimes the visual is lost. So let me show you kind of so when I'm talking about the visual, when you think about what we're building, right? Like not us, raia, but you at the BU level, like as we're your partner, and we want to help you build this, but we're not necessarily the answer to all these boxes, but this is honestly where you should be headed. And you're already kind of there, I think, in many of these places, right? Most of us, great example, most of us are in the productivity tools world, right? Some you're using Claude Code, you're using Cursor or whatever, And then maybe you're even starting to experiment with building out apps using those tools, right? Agentic driven apps. And you're starting to see the power of what you can do and how you can speed up certain types of productivity. And obviously a lot of CSI companies have legacy code, and they're trying to figure out how they modernize that or how they help debug that. But when you start talking about the engine, the thing that runs this thing, and you start talking about how the AI stack begins to unfold, you start to think, okay, man, I really need more. I need to consolidate my agentic workforce. I need to build out my agentic workforce that I can talk to on a consistent layer with these tools. So we've all hit the limit, right? You've got Claude, you've connected it to a variety of different sources, and you've obviously got the access to the generalized model. But what you don't have access to is your knowledge base, or this other, or this agent over here that's been trained on your code, or this agent over here that's been trained on your sales processes, whatever it is, right? So your agentic workforce is now being exposed through MCPs that anything can connect to. And this is the power of this approach. And our job at raia is to accelerate that, right? Is for you to build out this AI engine faster. Because basically what I showed you in a matter of minutes earlier today is I built out an agent that automatically had all of this already included. I didn't have to build all this. I didn't have to go connect it to services. I didn't have to code anything. I didn't have to go talk to a developer. It came with a vector database out of the box. Security, compliance, out of the box. System instructions, access control, auditing, communication, out of the box. It took me 3 minutes to build an agent that had all this. The only thing it didn't have was instructions that specific to what I wanted to do and the training and any sort of connectivity that I needed to add through command or whatever it might be, or through workflows. But basically a lot of it was already built out, right? And then what I also showed was human in the loop, which is Copilot on our side, right? Testing and training, which I demonstrated with Copilot, how you would do that, how you would engage with the agent and talk back and forth to it. And then also with conversion or with command, how we do data embedding and conversion for you. So, when you're in command and you have 100 documents or 1,000 documents, or many of you that we work with have gigabytes of data, just drag and drop that in command and it will do all the embedding. It'll do all the classification. It'll make sense of it using AI. You don't have to go through the process of having to organize all that. It'll make mess of the junk box and put it right, and it'll be available to your AI agents. So the entire bottom part of this frame is using raia. Raia can solve all of this, if not most of it, almost immediately. And then it's just a matter of, okay, how do we now integrate it with our legacy apps and so forth? Now, I showed you how we pull data in to train the AI, but what I haven't shown you is workflows and integrations, which we'll get to in a minute. So basically, when you think about where you should be in a year or 2 years, are you headed this direction, right? Are you looking at this as more of like, this is your core stack? Your legacy systems become systems of record. You're probably going to generate a lot of cool stuff using Claude code or using some sort of AI generative code machine. But these things are going to connect to your agentic workforce. You might have some databases, sure. But for the most part, when you were building out your applications, what you really want is a human user interface to your business, right? And that's, of course, out of the box. We give you the voice, live chat, SMS, email, but you also might build some really cool custom apps to talk to it as well. All right, so let me go to the next question. When we retrain raia, how does the comment section in the feedback impact, or does it take the retraining from the correct answer that we feed it? So let me show you kind of how that loops in. So the first thing you got to make sure of is, and I'm going to use the agent that we just created, is you want to make sure that you have the feedback skill activated. So you have to activate feedback skill for it to be automatic. Now, now I'm in the feedback skill. So I'm going to go ahead and just say all time. You can make it manual or auto. What that means is, does it automatically upload into your agent, or do you want to manually? And so I'm going to go ahead and set up this skill. So now it's set up. So I've got feedbacks. I've got the feedback skill up and running. So I also want to just like again, a side note, not to get too soapboxy here, but the idea of reinforcement learning and getting feedback through a tool so that you can get a higher efficacy on your agent is not it's a very important component, but you get it, like, that's how easy it is to set up, right? So if you're trying the DIY route and you're trying to build agents on your own, and especially enterprise grade agents that are going to be autonomous, that you want to trust and you want to go ahead with confidence, it's all of these skills that come out of the box that are easy to set up and you can train anybody on to do it, is what makes this accelerate, right? And I know that it's alluring to DIY stuff, but I highly encourage you, like, I mean, you take a breather and say, all right, well, I don't mind DIYing from, an agent upwards, but do we really want to sit here and build all of this core functionality, or do we want to get it free out of the box here? So these are things you have to contemplate. So like, this is how you set up human feedback, right? I just added that skill. Now, if I come into the agent and I start talking to it, so let's just say I don't like this answer, right? So I say, no, this is a bad answer. And I'm just going to give it a comment. I could give it a new answer here if I know the better answer. So I'm going to say, like, not, didn't include all the products, needs to be robust, right? And I could also, if I wanted to cut and paste an answer in here, I could, so I can put that in here. So once I save the feedback, then now it's kind of, so remember, people who are doing feedback is going to be primarily your, what I call your power users or your managers of the agent. So again, projecting into the future, if your employees have multiple agents that work for them, then they're going to be the ones that are monitoring how well this agent does. Now, when we help launch an agent for our customers, we're in there training these agents with them. And especially in the beginning, we're doing a tremendous amount of feedback and we're doing a lot of testing. But then ongoing, the feedback loop never needs to stop. You can continue to go with your support team or your sales team or whoever is managing the agent. They can constantly give more updated feedback. And this becomes, to some degree, your most real-time source of truth, because a lot of the knowledge that we have as companies is in the heads of our employees, and it's very real time. And our knowledge base is actually outdated, and our user guide is even more outdated, and what our customer knows is even more outdated. And so this is exactly why support exists, right? Because if it was in those documents, very well written and accessible, our support tickets would go down. But what happens is people want better support. So the point of trying to transfer that knowledge that's in that person's head, that tribal knowledge, real time using human feedback, is part of this product, right? Okay, so now I've created that feedback loop, right? And so what happens now is that goes, that's added and it's saved in the feedback in our system under that agent. So if I go back to that skill, you'll see it show up here as a feedback, okay? So you have a variety of options here. If you're doing it manual and you don't want to automatically create new training, then you would go in here and you would suss through the feedback and then you would update your training manually, right? That's an option you have. If you want to do it, if you want to automate it, what happens is we run through the feedback skill and we run it through AI. So that if the feedback skill has its own AI agent, and it compiles it and then it uploads it into your training. And so it ultimately ends up in your training as a JSON. So it only runs, I think, on an hourly or daily, but let me show you kind of what it looks like. So it's not going to be here yet because we just launched it, but let me show you kind of what it looks like on on an existing agent. And it'll look something like, it'll be called something like feedback JSON, which is just a file where the feedback is stored, right? Let me see if I've got this. Let me see if this agent's got it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So it's going to look like this: conversation message feedback. And so what our AI, and it'll come in, and it's basically just more training. So it's just another file that just gets automatically uploaded, as part of your AI training. And that's how the feedback skill works. Very simple. Once you get it configured, you can have it on autopilot. Now realize you can limit who gives feedback and to the access control. So you could have users that you can unlock that feed. If you don't want everybody to be able to give feedback to an agent, right? Then you can you can give them limited access. So again, this is more about, like, some people just might use the agent, but you don't really care about their feedback. Obviously, some people you do care about their feedback because they're qualified resource. All right, let's go. So we currently have an agent built on single data source, and we need to support multiple data sources. From an architectural standpoint, what is the recommended approach and how should we implement it? So that's a great question. So when you think about data sources, you have to ask the first and most important question is, are you accessing this data source real time during a live chat? Or is this a data source that you're accessing through a workflow? Or is this a data source that we're accessing for training? So there's three really areas where you use a data source. I'll give you some clear examples, right? Let's say you have Zendesk, right? Okay, so you want to train your AI agent on your Zendesk knowledge base. Well, in that scenario, you would use command and you would connect to Zendesk, and then you would this would automatically create a pipeline where your knowledge base articles are put into your training. So we already went over that, that's clear. The next use case, real-time access to Zendesk, is where you might want to basically have your agent query Zendesk for a ticket, right? Because that makes more sense to be real-time, because tickets are being added on an ongoing basis, and you want to just go grab a ticket, right? So in that scenario, you would basically create what's called a function call. So under skills, under your agent, and so let me just, actually, I'm gonna pull one up as an example that I can show. Second here. Yeah, so like here's an example of an agent that has a function call. So you would activate your functions, and all a function is basically saying, you're telling the AI, hey, if anybody asks, so you're giving them a new, you're adding to the prompt, right? So this is the function instructions. So, and what the AI is going to do is when they get a question, the AI is going to say, okay, is this question, do I need to go and access this data source to get the data back from it in order to answer this question? And if so, these instructions here will tell the AI when and if they want to get they should actually access this data source. Otherwise, they'll skip over it, right? So if I go into this agent right here and ask it what time it is, it's not going to call this function. But if I ask it, like for this function, it's saying, if I ask about a customer, it will access the database. So let's go ahead and do that, right? So if I were to go into that agent, so I'm going to go into Copilot just because I want to I'm going to talk to it. And let me just make sure I was in the right one here. Hold on. Yep. Agent, training, skills, functions. Yep. So let me over here. So yeah, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and talk to this agent, and I'm gonna say, like, if I say hello or whatever, you're gonna see, like, okay, it's gonna go through, it's gonna say, it's going through its process, right? And it's gonna say, oh, this guy didn't ask about customers, so I don't have to really worry about it. But if I start asking about a customer, then it's going to go, oh, wait a minute, I think this guy's asking me. See, now it's executing function, and so I think this guy's asking me information about the database, and so now it's doing a real-time query to my database, but it's in chat, so it's real time, if that makes sense. So let me just really quickly show you a picture that sheds a lot more light on this. Is this one. So what is happening when I submitted that prompt, right? The first thing it did is it went and looked at the system prompt. Now the system prompt is that set of instructions that we created, right? And so that's right. So let me kind of, like, I'll walk you through exactly where it's getting this information, right? So let me just load up that agent. So the first thing it does, right? The first thing the AI does is it grabs this right here. This is the system instructions. And that is what you see here, right? Then it goes, all right, I got the prompt from the user. I look at my system instructions, and then it goes, oh, wait a minute, this guy is asking for a database query. So it goes over here and it grabs the function prompts and it creates a combined prompt. And then it sees at that point, oh, wait a minute, the function prompts got triggered. And so because I said, if anybody asks about clients, go to the database. So it combines all three of these things into this kind of Uber prompt, and then it starts to access things, right? Then in this proprietary knowledge is really that database, area, right? And then it goes, oh, wait a minute, is it also and then I would say, yes, it's accessing I need to go into access the vector store. So that is, just to toggle over again, that's this. These documents are all in the vector store, right? So, I mean, they don't look like this in the vector store. They look like mathematical embeddings, but they're all in the vector store, right? So let me go back. And then it combines that. So it goes in the vector store, does a query there, goes into the database, does a query there. And then it goes in and says, do I need to invoke any tools? Do I need to actually go out and do anything else? Do I need to do I need to call a workflow? Do I need to access anything else? And if it comes back and says no, then basically then it passes that entirety of that entire thing to the large language model. And then the large language model puts it all together, does its magic and puts it all together, and then outputs it back as the response, right? So so that was important for me to kind of outline, because this gets to the answer to your question. So for me, if I wanted to be able to access two data sources, I would simply just add another function call. You could add as many function calls as you want, right? And a function call can go to a workflow or to a webhook. That webhook could also trigger multiple data sources. So you don't even have to, if it's something that you need to invoke separately, you put it in the function calls. But you could also have a singular function call that identifies intent, and then in your workflow, using a product like N8N or Make or whatever, that can then connect to your data, or you could build your own webhook that can connect to your data sources as well. So you get a lot of power in the function call calling a webhook, and that opens up a whole nother world of how you want to deal with that query that the AI is sending you, right? The third piece is workflows. So the other area is if you want to access databases as a workflow. So typically, when you build out an agentic workflow where you're not necessarily doing it real time, accessing the database real time, but you're actually sending a request to a webhook and accessing the data through a workflow and then bringing it back, then I would look at our webhook function. And so our webhook function is where we can send the entirety of the current conversation to a webhook that you set up on your side. So it could be, like I said, it could be anywhere. It could be a URL in your software. It could be something you build custom. It could be inside of N8N. It could be inside of Make, Zapier, or really anything, any other software. So if you're looking to invoke, the agent invokes a workflow, and it's not necessarily in the conversation, but it's something that it's invoked either through escalation or through a keyword, or at the end of the conversation, it triggers a workflow. That's what you would set up here as a webhook. I would say that most of our integrations are done through the webhook skill, because what happens is when the conversation is done, when somebody has a full conversation with the AI agent, we always webhook the results of that and put it into some sort of application. It might go in your CRM, it might go into a database, it might trigger a whole nother workflow, or wherever it ends up, right? So that's how you integrate those two worlds. All right, next question. How can raia Cloud Ops agent receive and complete requests from an external teams using workflows? For example, if a team needs IP address updated in ISS for a specific customer, how would the agent trigger and execute the appropriate workflow? Okay, so this is a great example of a complicated workflow, and there's a lot of ways to skin the cat here. A lot of it, comes down to when you design a workflow and the agent is going to be part of it. The first question I always ask with workflow is, what is the trigger, right? What is the event that puts this in motion? Is it, is it a timed event, right? So sometimes you have autonomous workflows that just run every 10 minutes and it queries, or looks for a data update or something like that in a system, or it just runs the workflow on a time-based system. Sometimes it's triggered by you updating a field in a third-party app. So a lot of the integrations that we do with Salesforce, with Zendesk, or with any third-party app, we might look for a change. Like a lead might come into Salesforce, and if the status changes to, from new to open, that might trigger a workflow that then invokes an AI agent to reach out to them. So the first question is, what's the trigger, right? So let's just hypothetically say your trigger here is, let me see here, declare receive complete request. So somebody somehow sends a request. So let's just say the trigger is somebody submits a form or sends an email. It doesn't really matter, or puts it in Teams, right? On a Teams channel. So that triggers the workflow. Then you have the AI agent is going to be trained on exactly how it's supposed to interpret that workflow, come up with the best output results, and it needs to have access through API or through OAuth to whatever systems it needs access to make those adjustments, changes, or communicate to whoever will make those adjustments and changes. So you can integrate it with Teams, you can integrate it with pretty much anything in the Microsoft ecosystem. So that's something that just needs to be set up, and the agent can live in there. And operate as needed. So as far as updating an IP address directly and having the agent do that, that's probably, I have never done that. Whether it's even possible or not, I'm not sure through an API, but probably is, so if that is possible, where you could have it say, I want to be able to update an API in my workflow, then you could connect that and create that as another part of that workflow as a function call. You probably want to put a human in the loop before that, where a human basically says, I approve, or reviews it before sending it off. But it certainly is doable, right, from start to end. And there's probably some verification steps there that are more programming than AI. But I think the core is what triggers it, what do you want the AI to output? So input, output are always the two questions I ask anytime before I build an agent. What is the input and what is the expected outcome or output? And then I can build an agent in between. And sometimes you have to build some software around it, right? You have to do some integration, you have to do some stuff, but I can build an agentic workflow in between the input and output as long as those are identified. So yeah, this is just a very classic workflow, agentic workflow. The agent is there to make sense of anything that's not programmatic. If it needs to interpret things the right way, if it needs to do a lookup or needs to kind of access a third-party app, it can do all that. It can present the solution. It could do a double check. It could do a query against the existing system to make sure that IP doesn't exist. It can do all that and then basically save the user or the human 80, 90% of the time that they have to do. And then it just might basically tell the user, click a button and to finish this workflow and approve, right? Or it could go to an app that just has a button, that you generate. You could generate the front end with Claude Code or with any sort of vibe coding tool, right? Like, you could build an interface for this very easily that just basically the agent is just populating the interface that, hey, I did the work. Here it is. I just need you to approve it. I think that's a pretty straightforward implementation. But I think the hard part of this would just be setting up the integrations within your Microsoft Entra and making sure that you're giving the AI and the app access to those scopes and endpoints that you need to programmatically make those things happen. Next question is, when would you like sub-agents together rather than use N8N? Does N8N have a valid use cases? This is a great question, and it's a very philosophical question. We try to bring a lot of the, what I would call common use cases natively inside of raia. So great example. If you wanted to spin up an agent and launch it today and have it be a support agent, live chat on your website, answering questions, and have it all integrate into Zendesk and all that. you can pretty much get most of that out of the box pretty easily, right? You don't have to do any really complicated Zendesk work or N8N workflows or Zapier workflows or whatever workflow engine you're using. That being said, we've built out workflows for a lot of BUs that are hyper sophisticated, that they want to be able to go through a series of things, right? They take their existing process and they want to make the AI go through it. So they might want to do a query to check X before it goes Y, and they might have it branch off with a little bit of an if-then logic. So it's really, the complexity is really honestly more on your side. If the struggle that most BUs have is you have the way you do things today, and you have the way the things you're going to do in the future with AI agents and humans working together. And so the question in the tug of war is, how much do you want to re-underwrite and refactor your human-only processes? And how much do you want to force AI to do it that way versus reimagine, now that you have the power of AI agents, reimagine your workflow completely different? And we find that about half of our customers embrace an agentic first mindset, and they're throwing away a lot of the human-based stuff because it's inefficient, it's not needed, and they're kind of trying to dial that down and remove complexity. Then we have about half of our BUs that embrace that old school, the human-based workflows, and they try to interject AI agents into it, and the latter typically becomes more complicated. It's not impossible, it's just more complicated because, AI, as powerful as it is, doesn't necessarily work well in inefficient systems. And I'm not saying your systems are necessarily inefficient, but they are human, which means that they're built differently, right? A great example, a simple example of this is we're building out AI agents right now that generate contract reviews, legal documents, NDA reviews, build out QSR decks. So at first sight, you're like, oh man, that would be amazing if we could automate a lot of this manual labor that I do to build these documents. The problem is if you're expecting AI to generate the document in the same way that you generate the document, which is basically in this PowerPoint format that's a hodgepodge of design, screenshots and weird emojis and memes and formats, or in the case of like an NDA redline, if you have to have it specifically in this format, or a contract review, if it has to be in this Excel spreadsheet that you've been using for 5, 10, 20 years, and you're not willing to change the format of that spreadsheet, which is typically very much like hodgepodge of things. It's not really truly a spreadsheet. It becomes kind of more of like a Microsoft Paint, if you will. Then AI is going to struggle with that because AI, it doesn't want to put it in that kind of format. So if you're willing to bend your over to and letting the AI output be at a minimum your new standard, then you're going to go farther faster. And I don't know if that answers your question, but essentially, if you're using a bunch of agents to do workflows and to kind of go through those processes, and if you keep things simple and you reimagine your workflows being agentic, then you'll have less of a need for complicated stuff inside of N8N. The more stuff that you want to keep standard, or if you want to complicate things, or you want it to have to go through a bunch of gates, a series of if-thens, and connectivity to different sources, then you're going to need that workflow engine. There's no right or wrong. It's more of a philosophy of a cultural shift, right? Most of our agents use N8N workflows to do light integrations with our existing forms, our existing systems. But for the most part, we do a lot of the what I would call knowledge work or decision making natively inside of the agents, because we built the agents to do that. And that's just a matter of trust and testing, really, at the end of the day. Next question: which LLMs raia use as a base model? Like as I showed earlier, we're built on the OpenAI, or currently built on the OpenAI family of models. We are planning on expanding and supporting other models as well, but right now you can choose from any one of those family of models for what we do. We have not found any sort of limitation. We get best pricing with OpenAI as well. We're on the OpenAI enterprise contract, and this may not mean much to you, but it is a significant way that we can save a lot of money on tokens, which we pass that savings on to you, because the more CSI businesses that are on raia, we can do bulk buy of tokens. Also, natively, OpenAI is just cheaper than Anthropic. And typically Anthropic, which we use, by the way, we use Claude Code quite a bit, and we find that it works very, very well in the coding environments. Although, one would argue that the Codex, which is OpenAI's coding agent, is almost as good, at least in the last week or so. So, I mean, I think the summary is, yes, our job is to support multiple models. We're going to be rolling out Google pretty soon, and Claude thereafter. That's another protection that raia provides you, or at least not just a protection, but allows you the flexibility and choice. So we're excited to do that, but it's not available today. All right, next question. We have created an agent that answers questions regarding the data in our database. The way we achieve it is using function skill, exactly, with webhook pointing to one of our database tables, and it works great. Now we want to add more tables in the agent's knowledge base. What is the best way to do that? If we add more function skills in the same agent, each pointing to a different table in our database, will that work? The answer is yes. And or should we create a new agent, add a function skill pointing to another table in our database, and then create another agent that routes to that agent? Certainly, there are reasons to have build out orchestration between agents. I'm not sure that's one of them, unless there's a fundamental change in what that second agent is doing. So, for example, because ultimately a function call is basically an addition to your prompt. Basically, all a function call is I'm going to add another section to my prompt that I give the AI, that if for whatever reason the user asks about X, I'm going to go and call this skill, and therefore I'm going to call my database. So having one agent on top of another agent, it's still going to traverse down to this secondary agent and call that function call, and isolate. It's going to isolate the query because you've put it into an agent. So this agent is going to defer to this agent. Therefore, the entirety of the answer will only come from this agent. So that's, in that scenario, if you want that kind of separation, then you certainly could do that. If it's not required, if this agent up here, your main agent, is simply going to say, oh, I have a question about dogs, so it goes to the dogs table, calls that function skill, replies, or I have a question about cats, and it goes to this table, grabs the cats function skill, and returns the data. If it's that kind of scenario, then you're fine doing it up here. Realize that if somebody asks a question about cats and dogs, it will probably call both functions. It'll go to the function skill, grab that information, go to the cat skill, grab that information, and then combine it as part of the answer, right? So, I mean, I guess there's no wrong way of doing it. Typically you would want to test it and figure out how it's responding. But essentially, that's the short answer to that. Another way to approach this, by the way, and this gets into some of the complexities that we've seen when we've deployed agents, is one of the things that we've seen is sometimes we want to move the routing to the n8n workflow. So in some cases, what we have the AI do, as you get to a more complicated database query, or if you're doing like prompt to SQL, or if you're doing some things that are a little bit more dynamic, you'll have the function call basically call the agent, or I'm sorry, call this webhook and pass the query, the prompt, and then the webhook will then and then the AI will convert that into a query based on the training of the database schema. So we've done a lot of work where we've trained an AI on the entirety of a database schema, and we have the AI generate the query, and we pass that on to an n8n workflow, which then has intent, looks for intent of the user, and then also can run that query against the database. So, you have a very wide spectrum of how you can implement database integration. It could be very simple if it's a one table, one query, grab data, bring it out, and you're just hitting like a data lake. That's great. But if you're doing a more dynamic prompt to SQL or more complicated data structure where you can't necessarily bring that entire database into one singular function call because it's just too dynamic or too robust, then I would push the I would make the AI discover intent of what the user is looking for, pass that intent to the innate-in workflow, and then from there, branch off the different kind of queries that you might use in the workflow. And this is where AI can get really crazy cool, but also relatively, complicated, because, and this is kind of the challenge that a lot of developers, including myself, have when we're designing out systems, because we want to build out a system that's easy to manage, and we want to push as much of the data or as much of the decision making to the AI as possible, without having to do any sort of programming or scripting or even building out workflows. But the combination of a really well-trained AI agent and a workflow engine pretty much gets you every possible solution that you can think of. And so when we build out our agents, we always look at all the tools that are available to us. But we try, if you want to just deploy a very simple agent trained on documents and give you email access to it, or put it up on as a live chat agent on your website, you can do all of that without invoking any sort of workflow engine, because that's all native inside of our system. But you want to have that AI go off and query that and access this, API, access that API, access this database. Then you're going to need some sort of workflow engine that takes the AI through that process, and that's a good thing, because that gives you the power of doing both. Another reason why we use innate-in, by the way, and I'll showcase some of the things that we do with innate-in. So let me walk you through. And again, sorry, I don't know where we are on time, but I'm going to keep going. You guys can hang up anytime you want. This is really for you, but I'm just going to keep riffing. But that last query that I did, right? We used this raia hub agent, right? So if you recall, I was over here, and I asked it a question about, where can I get contacts out of Click Dimensions? So what really happened behind the scenes there? Well, let me show you. So I'm going to go over to our innate-in instance. Okay. So, and let me try to find this real quick. It's probably somewhere in here. You can see that we do quite a bit of workflows. So it's going to be somewhere in here. Oh, here we go. Okay. So here's the workflow that just ran. Now, this is a very simple workflow. Here's the web. So let me walk you through it. Okay. So here's the webhook, right? Okay. So all innate-in it's kind of a zero code, low code way to build out a visual way to build out like an old school flow chart. That's really all it is. So nothing to be intimidated about. The reason why we chose innate-in as part of our solutions that we recommend is twofold. One, it's open source, which means no risk in vendor lock-in. You guys can install it on your own cloud. You can and also most of the connectivity that happens, not most, all of the connectivity that happens when you're building out agents and doing workflows is happening through innate-in, through webhooks and through, connectivity. So like, for example, right here, I'm connecting to I'm connecting to our database in this node right here. And that's why that's why if you want to have it in your ecosystem installed on your cloud, you can maintain all the control over all the access points that your AI has, which is a very strategic decision that we made early on, because we wanted you to control and own your workflows. And so having it on this open source product. And the second reason is because it is also the most popular workflow engine used by anybody who's building out agentic solutions. So it's not some random product that we found. It is the most popular one and the most powerful one that we've seen, right? So, but it doesn't mean that you can't use make.com or Zapier. Those are for profit. Those are, you have to pay us, you can install this on a server and you don't have to pay for it. You can go to their cloud and you can pay for it if you don't want to install it on your server, and just like the other systems that are out there. But what I love about innate-in as well is it's very easy to import and export and share workflows. So it's a very powerful tool. So let me show you what happened here. So what happened here was, so I'm going to show you, like, I asked it a question. who are all the contacts and click dimensions. So I didn't put a SQL statement there. I put a very much a prompt, right? What happened is that went to my AI agent, right? So let's go to the AI agent now. It went to this guy here, right? And it went through that, you know, it went through the flow. It went over to this skill at the functions skill that I had set up earlier, right? And I told it in the prompt in the function skill, if anybody asks about clients or customers, go ahead and invoke this function, right? All it grabbed was a string. It grabbed the prompt. That's all it took. That's all it had. Who are my contacts at click dimensions? And here is the webhook that it sends it to. So all it's going to do is it's going to send this to my webhook. Okay, so now let's fast forward over to N8N. So where's that webhook? Ah, right here. Lo and behold, there's the webhook. So in N8N, I created a webhook, and all I did is I copied and pasted this webhook. And when I set up this function skill, and I put it, and I just basically pasted it right here. So now, anytime this function is invoked, it's going to pass to this webhook the data that I need to actually execute that function. So let's take a look at what actually happened in that last query. So here's the webhook that came through. You can ignore all this, but see what it says here? Who are my contacts and click dimensions? Oh, sorry, I didn't share my tab. So it basically, here's what I got. Who are my contacts? I know you probably can't see that. So it passed over who are my contacts in click dimensions. And then my AI converted that into a SQL. My agent did that. Well, you go, Rich, how does it know, how on earth would it know how to create that SQL statement? All right, let's go back. Right, back to here. Well, good news is I trained it on my database. So we'll go back to the agent. Here you go. I trained it on our schema and our data model. So here's our databases. And here's our tables. So my AI was able to translate, hey, how many people got to click dimensions to that query, right? And then we trained it on the database schema, and we uploaded that into the training. So now it was able to pass that over to N8N. So now all I do is I come in here, I have a little bit of a check. So I make sure that, you know, nobody can pass anything other than a select statement. Make sure that, you know, nothing nefarious is going on there. And then I send it to then I basically take the query and I send it to my database. So this is the connection right here to my database that I set up. So it's just a super base, right? I just added my authentication. Back to my original point, all the authentication is done inside of N8N. So it protects you. It's a zero trust environment. You control it. Nobody else has access to it. Your AI is not going to go off and into Wonderland and do anything nefarious, because you've controlled what it can access, what it can scope, what it can do as far as its user control. And then it runs the query, and then it brings back all the data. So it brings all the data back as a JSON, right? And then it sends it right back to my webhook. It says, all right, I got the data, and it sends it right back to my AI agent. And then what happened is that basically comes back to my AI agent as this ugly data set. But then what does my AI agent do? Because it has an LLM, is it turns it right back, and it makes it like a nice little pretty table, right? And gives me the information that it thinks I want, right? So that full cycle is a great example of the power of raia, right? I can spin up an agent, get it trained, give it all the tools it needs, and then I could go, oh, wait, you know what? I would really like to have this access my CRM system. Okay, great. Create a webhook. Whether I put that webhook at the end of a conversation and do it autonomously, or whether I want to do it as a function skill where it's live real-time chat, it's up to me. But it's either way, it's the same thing. I'm creating a webhook, toggle over to N8N, create the webhook, create the connection, get the response back, and then off and running. My agent now has the ability to answer questions about anything it's been trained on. It has the access to what the database where I want it to have access to. And now I can use it and I can deploy it as an internal tool like Copilot, or I could have done the same query in live chat, right? I could have if I came to the live chat experience, and I go, like right here, like it would have it there, who are contacts at, I can ask the same, it doesn't really matter. I can ask the same question on Copilot, on live chat. I could have asked the question via email. So if I go over here, let me see if I've got email skill. I do. So let me see. So I'm going to email this guy. And let me make sure he's live. So I'm just going to toggle over to my email real quick. So while that's running, sorry, I'm just going to send off that email and wait for that to come back. And then where was I? Yep. So like live chat came back. I said, who are the contacts at TSS? Came back, gave me the contacts of TSS. So like imagine this being a live chat. So if this is something that you're exposing to customers or something, obviously you would give them access to what you want to give them access to, but you can obviously integrate it with your systems there. And the other cool thing, and I'm going to basically toggle over here as far as like just from an auditing compliance, because I do think it's important to talk about that, is everything that happens here is all being tracked. So every single conversation is all in one place and being tracked. Every single user that interfaces your AI agent, whether they're through live chat, through Copilot, anonymous or non-anonymous, are all tracked, and they all are given their own kind of accounts, right? So we track every single communication, every single user. We maintain memory, we maintain context of what that user's experience was, which is very valuable when you talk about AI having continuous conversations with them. We also make sure that we track every single log. Everything is logged down to a granular detail, right? Every single webhook that's called. So if I wanted to, let's just say some issue was happening with my webhook, I could come in here and help, and I could debug it, see what happened, right? Who are contacts at TSS? That's what was just called. What, if there was an error, I can go discover it and so forth. And of course, I can look at, we already talked about this, but resource usage and so forth. So I think it's extraordinarily important to know, like when you start to really think about the total ecosystem here, and you think about all the things that you want to be able to, understand on, when I deploy an agent and I want to actually do all of these things that are, come up in all these great questions that I've answered today, these little nuanced things, all those things come out of the box. You just have to learn how to basically implement them and use them within raia. And it saves you a tremendous amount of time, not just in building it, but more importantly, in maintaining it. Because I think that's the thing that we always see when we're talking to our customers that have either tried to go at it alone with DIY, or they've tried to go with building it natively within Microsoft's ecosystem or Amazon's ecosystem, and they start having to tie all these services together, and they get deeper and deeper into the cloud infrastructure, and it becomes this kind of very huge amount of inertia, and they still don't have visibility, they still don't have all the tools they need, and they're still kind of underwater when it comes to trying to build out just the basic agent. These are the things that you don't realize are make it exponentially harder to maintain over time, right? And we just and every day, all we're focusing on over here is building more and more tools, more and more skills, more and more ways. It makes it easy for you as a vertical market software company to deploy agents both internally and externally. And so that I'm hoping you see a lot of that today here. Here's the next question here is, how can you build connectors in Command? That's a great question. Honestly, it's very easy. You just ask us to do it and we will do it. I mean, we don't have a way for you to build the connectors necessarily yet. You can certainly build connections with n8n workflow and using function calls. That's typically how we do it when we try to connect to something that's maybe foreign, or it's not something that's out of the box ready in Command. But if it's something that you need to be built out, And that's why we exist. That's a great example. I mean, the relationship that we have with CSI companies is that it's like we're here to service and build infrastructure and build a layer above the kind of general AI ecosystem that enables you to do more faster, right? So if you need a connector to XYZ system, then let us help you do that, right? Let us help you build that, right? And then maybe other CSI companies will benefit from that, because maybe or we will definitely show you how to do it, and if you build it, we can certainly implement it. We don't have to be the only person that's contributing to the platform. We have a lot of CSI developers that are part of our a small group of people that contribute ideas, code, and so forth to of raia. We try to do our best to be inclusive. So, but the short answer to that, Daryl, is let us know what connector you need, and then if it's possible for you or for us to build it, or if it's something if we can enable you to build, we'll figure out the best option there. The next question is, how can we enable customers to download or export resulting table? Additionally, the best approach to support graphic visualization. Okay, so this is a great question. I know this was you're probably part of the same group that was asking about, like, if you wanted to have them be able to download a table within live chat, like basically kind of like what I just showed, where we are rendering a table inside of the live chat, and you want to be able to download that as like a CSV. I know we got that as a feature request last week, and it's in the queue. So it's something that we're going to add. But another great example, we didn't have it. It wasn't something that was part of our live chat, but because a couple of BUs have asked about it, it's something that we're now putting in play, right? So this is like exactly what we're looking for, and exactly the point of this AMA call is not only for you to understand and ask me anything you want about the product and how to do things, but if there are features and functionality that you need in our platform, this is what we do, right? We are a company, that is solely focused on building a AI platform to help you guys accelerate and to bring features to life so that you're not wasting time on that, right? And you can focus specifically on what you're doing within your BU, right? And expanding what we have and providing more value to your customers, because we're not doing anything that's specific to your BU. We're not building, you're obviously the owners and visionaries behind your product, but anything we can support you by building, making it easier for you to deploy AI agents at scale is really why we exist, right? All right, so the next one is, can you explain again how do you see the logs that you showed? Yeah, so basically to see logs is you would go into Launchpad. You can see all conversations here. If you're looking for conversations, you can also see conversations obviously through Copilot, which this is if I click here, that'll link to the conversation. You can also download the conversations. And then the logs are over here under settings, under kind of an admin menu, and you can click logs here. And so that's where you can look for, if we've got errors, you can look for error logs. You can look for different sources. So if you're looking for an auditor log, if you're looking for SMS log, if an SMS message was sent, email logs, all those are here, and accessible through the kind of, if you click on settings down here. I know we have a few more minutes. If there's any other questions, now would be the time to ask. We are going to be doing more of these pretty consistently. It's meant to be for anybody and everybody that's going to be building on our platform. Our job is to teach you how to fish. We certainly are available to help you build out agents and help you construct, but we get farther faster together. And if we can all learn the basics of how to build an agent, and that means more agents will be built, which means more agentic workforce, that means more cost savings, more productivity for everybody. And the other component of why it's important to learn raia, or at least what I kind of showed today, is, quite honestly, it's just how AI agents work. Take raia out of it. It's not like our way of doing things. It is the way of doing things. It's just a matter of picking the right tools and platforms that you want to use, what you're more comfortable with. But building an AI agent, no matter what you choose to build it with, is exactly what I showed you today. It's not going to be much different, right? And to recap, it's system instructions, which is like the Uber prompt. It's training, the vector store. It's function calls, it's tools, it's skills, which is APIs, which is MCP, which is vector stores. It's integration, right? Being able to understand, like creating those inbound and outbound API connectivity through like workflow engines like N8N or just natively through MCPs. It's being able to build out a wide variety of use cases. So it's flexibility of like, I can build a support agent, I can build a knowledge base agent, I can build a sales agent, and I could build a, technical support, a technical coding agent. I can pretty much build any sort of agent I want. So, but they all live on that same architecture. And I think the two things I wanted you to take away today was that if you're not using command, I really, really think you should be, for a variety of reasons. One is, as you start to empower your teams to deploy more agents, the first question they're going to ask is, how do I train it, right? How do I get the information from where it is today into the agent? How do I convert all of these documents that I have into what I call AI ready, which is basically a markdown? And how do I then get it up to the agent? How do I publish it to these different agents? So think of this as the router, the pipeline of your knowledge into your system. You can easily invite your people from your team to join. It's essentially a Dropbox format. You won't see, you'll probably just see your orgs up here. You can have multiple orgs, but you're probably only going to see, like, if your org is Acme, you'd see like Acme Main, Acme Sales. If you want to divide it up into divisions, you can. But basically, you're living in a very simple environment where you can drag and drop and get your people to start giving you the data you need to start building your AI agents. So if you're trying to go around and chase everybody down, hey, can you give me that knowledge base article? Hey, can you give me the latest user guide? Just have them access it and drag and drop. And if they don't want to access it here because, whatever, they love SharePoint, then just go into connectors. You have to set up a connection with SharePoint. I have all the instructions here. And then connect your folder inside of here to SharePoint, and then it will grab your SharePoint documents as needed. So if you prefer that, then that's great too. I think it unnecessarily adds complexity, but whatever, it's dealer's choice. The reason why you definitely want to have your documents in here prior to going to the agent is for the reason I outlined, which is, you want to be able to convert these and upload them into the agent in an efficient manner. And when you're dealing with thousands of agents and you're dealing with a lot of data that needs to be organized for the purpose of agentic training, which none of those other tools do, by the way. So even at a baseline, even if you're saying, I'm going to build my agents in some other platform, you should be using raia command, because none of those other platforms have the ability to convert and curate all of your data, which is necessary to then be accessible by your agent. The other cool thing about command too is once your data is in here and it's ready to go, it can also act as a data lake if you wanted to, and you can actually create an MCP that accesses your command. So now you've basically saying, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to upload some of this stuff into this one agent, but I'm actually going to have this other agent just MCP into this folder as it needs data and grab it programmatically. So again, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and our job is to build tools and technology that allows you to do that, right? The other cool thing is you get to manage and monitor the entirety of your knowledge base in a more sophisticated manner. So you can really quickly see, like, even at the project level, how many documents you have, how many have been curated and ready for AI, how many have been uploaded to training. So you can actually manage your data better, because remember, there's a lot of knowledge drift. There's a lot of issues with AI as you kind of begin to maintain them over time. You want to make sure they're up to date. You want to make sure, when was the last time this document was uploaded? Or maybe I need to go into this document, like for example, this document here. I want to see the metadata about it, right? Who uploaded it? When was the last modified? I want to download the original. I want to download the converted. This is also a great place that if you wanted to access and download these markdown files and use if you wanted to download and use them inside of a tool. Like let's say you wanted to download your entirety of your Git book that has all of your knowledge base articles, and you wanted to upload that into Claude or ChatGPT and play around with it. Boom, download markdown files, and it'll download everything you need, right there in a zip. And now you can just simply upload that and start working. So this is like just the new age knowledge base. So I focused on command today. In our next session, I'll talk about control, which is another product that we have, which is primarily around doing outbound communications for sales and support. If you want to proactively have your agent do outbound outreach, we have another product called raia control. Feel free to go to raiacontrol.com and learn about it, but we didn't have enough time in this session to cover it. I wanted to focus on command because, again, part of the workflow that we've talked about here, right? The vision that we're trying to educate everybody on is you're going to build out agents. You're going to have a lot of them. You want to make sure that those agents are accessible by not only your tools, but also by humans, using human user interface like email, SMS. And you don't want to waste time building that infrastructure. And no matter who accesses the agents, you want to have one singular place that you can monitor it, manage it, and make sure that you can access and see what's going on in your entire universe. It may not be a big deal today because you have one or two agents, or you have one or two apps that you've built out. But we manage thousands of agents, and I can tell you, we would never be able to do that without a singular platform and interface. There's no way you're going to do that through a framework like Microsoft Copilot Studio or all these other frameworks. They're not there to do that. They're there to help you build. They're just not there to help you manage at scale. And then you're going to want to own your workflows. You're going to want to have flexibility there. I showed you N8N today. It's a powerful tool. It's free. If you need access to N8N, by the way, it does come part of your package. We can give you access to our hosted N8N if you want to just play around with it. So if it's something that you guys need access to, let us know. Just email support. So out of the box, you get everything you need, right? You've got the raia CX product, which is where you build your agents. You have Copilot to do your human feedback, your testing. You've got raia command to do your curation and collection of all your data to train your agents on. Everything is vertically integrated. If you need access to an N8N instance, we can spin one up for you, not a problem, and give you access to it. We obviously are here to help you, in any way or shape or form. But when you're talking about accelerating and development of these AI agents, I highly encourage you to dig deeper. And please take advantage of what the tools and technologies you have. I just scratched the surface today of what we have. Every single one of the skills that we have, every single one of the features that these agents come out of the box with, open up a whole nother depth of functionality. Like a great example is our live chat skill. The amount of functionality that you have within that one skill is immense. And so, from customization of how it works, how it operates, how it integrates, the behavior, the user experience blows away any other live chat experience I've ever seen, and still integrates with your Copilot and your agent. And if you needed to, dump the conversations as tickets into your existing, old-fashioned SaaS products that you currently use. You can absolutely do that. But if you're going agentic and you're going with a system that's going to deploy and support any and every use case you can possibly think of, because there's going to be hundreds, and you want to empower your team to build on a platform that you have oversight on and that you have control over because it's CSI, it's a CSI product, then please investigate. And if you need anything, if you need access to other more orgs, if you want us to spin up other orgs for you, please reach out to support. Most of you only have one org, but if you need more, it doesn't cost anything. So if you want a personal org, if you want an org just for your dev team, let us know. If you want access to N8N, let us know. If you want, whatever you need, we're here to support. There should be no reason to get your teams, your domain experts, your developers excited about it. Hopefully this was useful for you guys. It was my first time, so sorry for about a little bit of jigging the jags there, a little bit of delays. I was doing OAuth. I was letting people into the room. I was doing a lot of things at one time, but I do appreciate any feedback. If you could give me any feedback, I'll make the next one better. It's meant to be kind of jazzy. It's meant to be kind of off the hook. Next time, bring more questions. We're happy to do anything and everything to make you successful. I know a lot of you are making big decisions right now on the future of AI. I know there's a lot of people with a lot of high hopes on what they can deliver. I know there's a lot of pressure coming from portfolios, from operating groups. Please let us be a division. We don't have to do everything. We are a resource you should access. You should ask us anything, run by anything by us. We're not always the answer. If there's a better tool, better product to do something, we're the first ones to raise our hands and say so. We're not trying to be all things to all people, but I highly, highly, highly encourage you to leverage the expertise of our team here. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis. We're fighting the fights. We're building hyper complex, extraordinarily cool agentic solutions. We want you to be part of building this out. Our vision for CSI is grandeur and exciting, but we can't get there alone. We need everybody to participate, even if it's just at a small part, because if the only way raia becomes an exponential factor in the success of all of our companies is if we all contribute just a little. Because if we all contribute just a little and we start to build on it, then we have a resource we can share amongst each other, and people can start sharing agents, sharing code, sharing ideas at a much more rapid pace, because we're not all building the wheel in our own fiefdoms. We're at least agreeing upon that we have a platform here that we can all build on, we have control over, and that's not going to go away tomorrow, and it's being built for your best interest. So thank you guys for so much time. I'm going to be doing another one of these next week. Please, I'll be sending out invites a little bit more, with a little bit more heads up. I'll get those out today. If you have developers, if you have people on your team that want to participate, I'm trying to keep it more developer oriented. But again, developer is a new word, right? Your support manager, your product manager are now developers, whether you like it or not. CEOs of BUs that I'm working with are now developing stuff. So I guess to some degree, everybody is a developer now when it comes to AI, but I definitely am trying to keep this a little bit more technical when it comes to, okay, how do you use our product? How do you accelerate it? But please bring anything and everything to the table. Happy to, talk through all the different use cases that you guys want to talk about. Next week, I'll probably highlight some really cool stuff that we're doing with outbound marketing, outbound sales. I'll probably go into some integrations next week. With some third-party apps, and show you kind of the inner workings. Hopefully you saw some of like what I would call the vanilla aspect of what raia does today, from soup to nuts, how you would train, test, and deploy an agent, and give you a little taste of that. And I'll share out this video link as well. But thank you again for coming. I appreciate it. I look forward to more and more of these. At this point, our mission is just to get the word out. So if you know anybody else in your portfolio or your BUs, please, point them our way. This is extremely important for us to use this opportunity to show what's available to BUs within CSI, as at least just to say, hey, what are other people doing? What's been successful, and how do we become part of that ecosystem? Thanks again, everybody. Enjoy your day. That was fun. I really appreciate you guys coming.